Hello, everybody. This is Frank with Iron Age News. It is Monday, December 8th, 8:30 a.m. on the South Florida Conservative News Center. Hope you all had a good weekend. And didn't know if you caught I guess it was C-SPAN, had Marco Rubio on. He's in Kenya, and he's been discussing the rollout of the president's new America First health program. So I figured we would put some things out there before you hear that. It's some crazy thing, blah, 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 as you have heard about everything else the president does. And so we'll give you the background, those of you who are aware that U.S. aid was a thing, that the NGOs in general did nothing but harm. And it was time to get a new outlook. And this is money that the president can deal with without having to go to Congress. There is an actual health care fund for Africa specifically that the president has access to. That was the one they said he was going to cut off the AIDS money, which in and of itself is probably a gigantic scandal. But they're just like, we'll just go past that and we'll move and try to get something positive out of it. So for decades, right, American foreign aid has operated like a global welfare program, very predictable, open-ended, and largely unaccountable. Africa has always been the best place to play naughties if you're in the pharmaceutical business or laundering money or doing dirty shit to spite the United States government. It was so far as to even have had movies made about it, like Constant Gardener, things of that nature, which was actually a very good book. Changed a bit in the film, but what are you going to do? So billions have flowed into these NGO networks such that in some countries, the NGO is almost the viable government or was almost the viable government. African governments are starting to take it back. They see they have a friend in Washington. They know who the Chinese are, and they are deciding it's time to move forward and address the issues as Africans and as members of the various countries. The video that was out was of Marco Rubio in Kenya. As I said, the Kenyans are involved in peacekeeping activities in Haiti right now, which they're going to continue to do. Once again, kind of odd to send an English speaking bunch of Africans to Haiti, which speaks French, but at least they went, right? So we'll get into this more importantly, which is how this is going to affect a bunch of different people. As I said, billions of dollars have flowed into this sprawling NGO networks, and they have overlapped capacity building projects, consultant travel, endless conferences, and obviously a lot of late nights at the Strippy. A generation of people in Washington have built careers on the idea that the United States must forever bankroll health systems in developing nations because no one else will, which has always been untrue because the French love to dip their beak in wherever they can. So do the English. It was a comforting mythology, in the United States, because I would see stuff and I'm like, that's not true. And they're like, oh, that's exactly how we do it. So for the donors, NGOs, the think tanks, and it wasn't sustainable. It wasn't strategic, and it certainly wasn't fair to the American taxpayer. Three things that nobody thought about that worked for an NGO or a think tank operating in the third world. The new American First health strategy ends that model, not quietly or gradually, but deliberately. The strategy replaces an aid bureaucracy with a business-like contractual performance-driven system. And predictably, the loudest complaints are coming from the NGOs. They're like, I have a house in the Hamptons. Who's going to pay for that? And they are going to lose the most. They have done the most damage in the world. If you look at organizations that have actively contributed to the socialization, and I mean socialism, of the globe, have caused more fatalities, outside of the standard communist socialist systems. The NGOs should be banned from operating anywhere but raising money for your local library, to be honest with you. There has always been somebody who could do their job in that country, but then they would be accountable and they also wouldn't be able to get said house in the Hamptons. So, what the America First project is going to do is very simple. The U.S. funds pay for frontline outcomes, medicine, diagnostics, and health workers. They do not pay NGO overheads. Partner countries must co-invest. They have to meet performance metrics and deliver measurable results. Not the same shit that they've done in Michigan with the food program that didn't exist. Actual people will be taking an eye and putting it on these African countries. Bilateral compacts replace open-ended agreements. Accountability is contractual, not aspirational, meaning you are going to do it. Let's not dream that they're going to do it. Okay. And if nations don't meet the benchmarks, then they get their funding pulled. This is a deal. This is how it should work. This is a business out there. For the first time in decades, Africa and other partner regions are being treated like adults, not as a bunch of fragile wards of Western benevolence. The United States has been key in poor Africa. The Democrats, for all their whatever, of everybody being, victim state, have made it sound like the people of Africa are not smart enough to wipe their own ass, let alone run their own healthcare system. It is patently not true. They have been forced into their situation mostly by organizations like these NGOs with the aid of communist China, to some extent the United States without even knowing it, the French and the English, and probably another rogues gallery worth of idiots that we don't even want to talk about. So that is an exploitation, what we're doing now. This is respect that they are adults and that they can handle things on their own. Okay. China has operated on strict transactional terms in Africa for 2 decades. Beijing demands collateral performance. They want something to get something and a strategic return on investment. And Western media calls it efficient and pragmatic. Why do you think the Chinese own so many ports and parts of infrastructure in the rest of the third world? Because they made unrealistic business deals with people that didn't truly understand it. Not that they individually were silly, but they did not have the legal assistance necessary to make the correct decisions, or they were crooked. A lot of things went on. That's how China has gotten where it's gotten. It's not that everybody's in love with it. They're just a very crooked loan shark. So China was never threatened and were never threatens both the NGO business model. America first does. Which is why the outrage isn't coming from African governments. It's coming from Western institutions like Oxfam, whose budgets and influence depend on perpetual foreign dependency. They are the colonialists. The NGO, when you're walking down the street to get a sandwich at lunch and they say, you white devil, you colonializer, you whatever, I don't even know the words because I went to Harvard, you can turn around and say, fuck you, you shitbag, go get a job. And secondly, that's not my deal. And then point all these things out to them. So for far too long, the global aid system has subtly incentivized failure. Either they did not put the right people in those positions, or the positions didn't exist and the money was just skimmed. Okay. And when people are doing that, what happens when you skim, or if you skim off healthcare money, if you subvert supplies, if you sell stuff that's supposed to go to one country to another country, you are killing people. You are murdering them. Africa, as a continent, has very, very bad disease cycles going on out there. Every one of these, you can die a diet. What'll kill you in Africa is diarrhea. You want to get killed in Africa, other than by a terrorist? Diarrhea kills more people on the continent than anything else, right? Dirty water. How many times have you seen people, I'm putting in a well, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, and then you go there and 6 months later it's gone, or it didn't work, or the engine broke and nobody maintained it, right? I think the only person privately who keeps up on it is that Mr. Beast guy, and they continually try to take him down. I don't know enough about him to have a judgment call, but I do know he's built more shit in Africa than any NGO that I'm aware of, but that's just me, right? So basically, total story here is The United States is making this a partnership now. We are partners in the third world with the Africans and other countries to keep their people alive. Hopefully, while they're doing that, they're also improving their infrastructure, clean water, electric. You'd be amazed at what a small village that had access to even a college, what we call a college size refrigerator, there's little refrigerators to keep medicine safe. You would be amazed if every town in Africa had just one of those that could keep medicine from going bad, the difference in life expectancy that you would see. So, bravo to President Trump. Marco Rubio, if you watch him, has come off more and more professional every time I see him. He's really found his place in the administration. I could see him being asked to stay on. He could almost become a Henry Kissinger type, except for the murders, and all the shit that Kissinger got up to. But Rubio definitely is playing the part very well. He has a very good rapport with a lot of these countries. And I think this is going to work out well. It'll be another situation where the news will crash on about it because the NGOs are one of the number one siphons of American dollars out of the USAID program, as you saw. The United States NGOs are also the one that pimped out all those South Americans coming across the border down in the Darien Gap. But nobody talks about that. We have yet to have a substantive investigation in the Darien Gap as to you want to talk a genocide that occurred down there to foster the human wave attack against the United States. Nobody wants to go see those bodies. Nobody wants to go look at that facility. It's still there. The Chinese, I think, are still building that bridge, right? That's Panama and Colombia, two countries we can go to. Why isn't somebody on the ground documenting it all before it all vanishes? The jungle eats people. And the thousands of women and children that have died in the Darien are just another example of why every NGO should be shut down. That's just me. So, anyway, other than that, there'll be more forthcoming, and we will keep you advised as it moves along. So, have a good day. It's a Monday, and we'll see how the week goes.